Hey guys, in this video we're going to talk about creating a shirt collar, kind of like the one you see here on the screen. So this is my reference. I'm going to keep this off to the side while I'm working. And we're just going to zoom in on this and make our instance. So if you haven't already done this, we're going to delete half the model. This is especially the case if we have a mostly symmetrical model where we want to model with full symmetry. So I've got half the model deleted. Let's go over to Edit and Duplicate Special. Our geometry type is set to Instance, and we have the scale set to -1 in the X. And we'll hit Apply. Okay, with this setup, we're able to pull the center line apart like this. I also have my backface culling turned off. So under the shading menu, you can toggle this on or off. And we want to have it off for right now, just so we can visualize what the collar is going to look like, because we're going to do a series of edge extrudes, and right now our geometry is just single-sided. So let's do this. Let's just grab these edges here, and we're going to do an edge extrude. We can either do this from the Edit Mesh menu and do extrude. You can press Control E, or you can just, with the edges selected, you can hold Shift and use your transform tool to pull out an extrusion. Okay, and this is going to mess with our center line a little bit because it's not merged, but that's okay. We're going to come back and fix it. Okay, so we're going to do one extrude going up. We'll hold Shift and do an extrude going down, and then each time we'll just make sure that we're we're moving things around with it. Let's get this all the way to the back side here. Okay, so we don't want to do just a single edge extrude here. Okay, so we're not just going a linear from this originating edge to down. We want to have a little buffer in there. So we extrude it up once, and then we extrude it down once, and then now we'll create the actual collar. And before we do that, let's fix up some of this here on the back. Okay. So this time I'm just going to come over here, press Control E to extrude. Coming to a pinch here on the back, so I'm just going to move that a little bit. And since we are working with that instance, we do only have to worry about moving around one half of this model. Okay, so we do have an option if we want to kind of alleviate this heavy edge right here, this really harsh edge. We could split this one more time if we wanted to, so why don't we do that? That'll give us a more flattened edge here to work with. Okay, and I'm going to soften my edge normals just to get a better idea of what this surface is looking like. So there it is with softened edges. But this is going to be the starting point. But we can't just call it done like this just yet. So let me delete my history on this. Mainly the reason that we can't leave it this way is because these are all back faces. All these faces originated from inside the model, and then they came and turned outward. So I can show you that by going and turning on my back face culling again. So you can see we have this invisible collar here. because like I said, these are all internal back faces. If I turn on my edge normals, you'll see that they're facing the wrong direction. They're facing internal. Okay, so we cannot leave it like that. But what we need to do is give it some thickness, because we're not really working with single-sided geometry, especially when back faces are visible. Okay, so let's try this. I'm going to grab all of this geometry on the collar, right to about there, right around the neckline. Okay, and I'm going to go to Edit Mesh, and I'm going to extract it. Okay, and when I do that extraction, it does eliminate my my instance. Okay, so now I have two separate models. I have my collar, and then I have my body. And the reason I've extracted this is because if I were to extrude it, it would extrude in the wrong direction. Okay, and I can show you what I mean by that. If I just extrude this way, this is not the effect that we want, because it's extruding in this direction, but it's creating like a stair step up off of the surface, and I want it to go in the other direction. So what happens if I extrude it in the opposite direction? If I go this way, so now everything is inside out. Okay, so the reason it's doing that is because the normals are not facing the right way to get an internal extrusion. So let's do this. Let's grab that geometry that we extracted, and I'll turn on my my wireframe unshaded just to make this easier to see on the video. And I'm going to reverse the normal direction of this collar piece here. Okay, so you can do it under mesh display. So we'll say reverse. Okay, so now we have the opposite parts facing the wrong way. And then what this is going to do is it's going to make us, it's going to allow us to extrude this appropriately. So now we can pull inward with this extrusion. Okay, so that gives us our thickness that we need. And it doesn't create that stair step here on that surface, because we're going to merge all that back together again. Now the downside of doing it this way, whatever it's separated, is it is creating some faces that we don't want. Okay, so these faces underneath on the internal part, we don't want to have those, because that's not going to merge together properly with the internal part of the body of the geometry. So all this needs to go away. We just need to delete these faces, and it's going to do the same thing here at the center point as well. All those need to go away. Okay, now the ones that we want to keep are the ones that are facing the camera, these guys here. Okay, but the ones that are going to be merged onto, or they're going to be mirrored across, we want to get rid of those, so there's an opening there. Okay, and usually that center line is going to get thrown out of whack whenever we do the extrusion, so I'm just going to grab those vertices, I'm holding X, and I'm snapping them back to the center line. Okay, so they're all aligned perfectly flat. Alright, now with that collar made, I can grab the body, I can grab the collar, combine that geometry together, merge my vertices, and soften my edges. Okay, so I'll turn off my wireframe unshaded, and then let's delete history on this, and then just duplicate it back over again. Where's my pivot point? Okay, my pivot point moved. Okay, when I combined these two pieces of geometry, it adopted the center point of the body, which is far off to its left side. So I need to move that back to the center of the world. If I hold D and then hold X, it's going to allow me to snap back to the middle of the grid. Okay, now edit and duplicate special, option box, and I can make it an instance in the negative x-axis just like before, and hit apply. And then now we have a shirt with a collar. Okay, let's check the rest of our geometry. Anything else that we moved around, like this, looks like it's not quite centered anymore. Let's snap all that back to the middle of the world. We want to make sure all those center line vertices are snapped, because before we export, we're going to merge all this together again. So let's make sure that everything has something close to merge to. Okay. And if you wanted to add an extra split right there, you could. Whenever you split, you do want to change the silhouette a little bit. Okay, so I'll move that around a little bit, and then we'll just make sure this is snapped back to the middle. And then depending on how you're approaching doing your collar and if there's an overlap there, if you're doing like a button up, you have to make a decision. Do you want to overlap the shirt? And if so, that is getting into some asymmetrical type of geometry, in which case we would just do a duplicate instead of an instance. So we would just do edit, duplicate special, we'll set it to a copy and then send that over. And then now we're not working with symmetry anymore, but what we could do is just grab this half of the topology. We could pull that forward and then slightly overlap it a little bit like that. Here, let's remove this from the selection. Okay, so then if you're doing an overlap on your shirt, that might be a good time to do it after the collar's already made. Alright, so hopefully this is helpful to you guys making collars. Let's do this. Let's merge our vertices. Excuse me, I'm going to combine my object, merge my close vertices, soften my edges, and then delete my history. And then we have a nice collar made pretty easily with some back faces in there. And these it might not hurt to move some of these around too. And then probably what I want to do is just even out the spacing on this a little bit. When you're working low polygons, it's always good to keep evenly spaced quads when you can. Alright, cool everybody, thanks for watching. Let me know if you guys have any questions about this technique.